social media makes you think, or it makes things appear to be perfect.
You start to compare everything
right.
to an impossible standard.
I will say about the social media thing, that's one thing I do not post about. So people would never know what's going on in my life in regards to dating, is because that's the one thing I have never and do not post about. So if you ever see someone pop up, then you know it's a really big deal.
The problem with dating in 2024 is what?
I will say the hardest part about dating for me has always been, and what you had said was, putting yourself in a place where you can find someone that you'd want to marry. That has always been an issue for me. It's always been a struggle. Like, I was in a Mecca where there were plenty of wonderful, beautiful women to choose from when I was at Oakwood. But my 4 years at Oakwood was a healing journey for me. So that wasn't the time. And there were people that I did talk to, but that wasn't the time for me. Once I graduated at Oakwood, it was a desert. And that desert has not ended. Even though I work for the church, and even though, working for the church, obviously you're involved in the church, every church I've ended up at, it's like, okay, when I was in my early 20s, if there were anyone in their 20s or early 30s, they were married with young children. Otherwise, they weren't at church. Everywhere else that I've gone has kind of been a similar issue, where do you find people that, just saying the church, no, I don't think it's enough, because it's like, just because we go to church doesn't mean we're meshed together. So where else, if I'm not finding someone in the church, where else am I supposed to go? One of my grandmothers told me to sign up for online dating once. But no, I agree with you. That's not something that's for me. I can't put myself out there like that. That's just not for me. Now, I wish when I was a teenager that someone gave me the advice that you did. I came into the church as a teenager, so I became Adventist as a teenager. So I think my understanding that I got from the church about dating was kind of messed up. And I don't think that the other people that I grew up with in the church, I think their message was different because they grew up in Adventism. Coming into Adventism, I think the message that I got was incorrect, because I received the fairy tale type of message, that God has the one out there for you and you don't have to go searching. If you're doing what God wants you to do, He's going to provide. No, that didn't happen. Some searching had to have happened, So in my mind, I thought, okay, being a faithful young Christian, doing what God wants me to do, and being in God's field of missions, that, eventually He would provide someone. So the idea of dating multiple people to me didn't seem right, because that was the message I received from the Adventist church as a teenager. So while I was in my 20s, I still had that mentality, along with being in a desert, of finding someone that I would mesh with. Yeah. So I do, I appreciate that message. And I also, someone that I dated, she said she came into the church as a teenager as well, and she received the same message. But when we started dating, the reason we had this conversation was because when we started dating, she wanted me to know, I've dated because we had met in college, but she's like, since we were in college, I've dated a lot of people. I came into a stage in my life where I realized I needed to date a lot of people, not to get anything out of it in terms of a relationship, but to know what I want and what I need. And she said that did a lot for her, because after just meeting people, exactly how you explained it is what she experienced. So she knew what she was looking for in a partner. So I understand the advice, and I do appreciate it. And that's not to say that there are people who do only date one person, they get married, and they're married for life. Because when I was working in Miami Union, I was telling the students that people really, if they date in high school, they don't really get married. And they're like, but our teacher, which I didn't know at the time, but we had a husband and wife working they started dating as teenagers, and they got married, and they've been married. And they only dated each other, no one else. So it does happen, and it can be successful, but I think for most people, you do need to figure out what it is that you need.
I have a question for Gavin. I know it's kind of cliche. People always say, like, pray about it or whatever. And I know you said you worked in the field and, saying God will provide or whatever. But did you at any point pray for a significant other? If so, like, why or why not?
I did, yes.
And what made you stop?
Because, like I said, what made me stop was because I became comfortable being by myself. And I no longer desire, I really don't, if you ask me if I want to be married, my answer is going to be no. So I'm not looking for marriage because I don't want to be married. But as we said, can that change if the right person were to show up? Yes, it can. But it's not something I'm actively seeking. But I did, earlier on when I was looking, when I wanted it. Actually, when I came into the church at the age of 16, my idea was, okay, I want to get married as soon as possible. Because if you're a good Christian, you're married, and that's how you're able to do, marriageable exercises. So I figured as soon as I graduated high school, but
That's real.
but yeah, now no, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm content. So. Hey. Well, to answer that question, what about marital exercises? To tell you the truth, I actually don't like being touched. And that's the personal, like when you talk about the love languages, not only is physical touch at the bottom, it's like
has a zero.
way, it's like I was shocked at how way down there it's at. So for me personally, that is not too big of a deal because it's really low in my love language.
As singles, we do get a lot, just pray for it, like just wait on God, and that advice is terrible. I think the best advice is to keep yourself busy.
And I agree with that. Keeping busy it's a real thing. I forget that I'm single most of the time. I don't remember. When I remember that I'm single is when I come to church and when I go out with people when I'm the odd one out. So if I go out with people who are coupled up and I'm the odd one out, that's when I am single. But for the most part, I'm just living my life. I forget,